Hello, good evening. Welcome along to another episode of Tic Talking on the Boys and the Bus podcast. I'm your host Conor. I'm happy to say I'm joined tonight by my co-host Phil McGinley and Pam down on the bottom there. Hopefully she'll have no more connection issues now she's using a proper browser. But before we get stuck into all the juicy details, just want to say, guys, please make sure if you will, guys, can like, share, subscribe the channel. Obviously any numbers we do, it's vastly appreciated by every single one of us who do this. Obviously, no one gets paid for this. None of us make any money of it. It's purely just a passion project that we're all doing. So we're not going to be here sitting, talking about how much money we're making off it, and promising to give other people money, blah blah blah, stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just simply doing it for the love of the game. So if you guys can like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, we'd appreciate it. Obviously, you guys can now become members of the Boys and the Bus podcast. You get a highlighted comment, you get a little Celtic scarf next to your name as well, if that's something you're interested in. Obviously, seeing guys in the live chat now. Hello, good evening, how's everybody doing? But Phil, how are you good tonight, mate? You good?
I'm doing absolutely fine, mate. Big week ahead for Celtic and for us. So yeah, it's an exciting one. Hopefully it lives up to the hype this time next week. We're basking in the glory.
Yeah, this is a lot of potential to be a very, very good week to be a Celtic fan, despite all the negativity kind of surrounding the club now, which is rightly earned. I don't think any of us, depending on certain results during the week or at the weekend, are going to sweep any of this under the carpet. Some people may think that will avert their eyes, but let's say the guys in this podcast, we have our eyes firmly planted on where they belong, and that is on the board. But Pam, how are you feeling tonight? How are you doing?
Yeah, overall, I'm feeling good. I'm happy with the performance over the weekend, and I am really looking forward to the game tomorrow. There is a lot at stake, so hopefully it should be an entertaining watch for the right reasons.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, this weekend, I should say, has been a eventful one for Celtic, as Celtic cruised to a 3-0 victory over Livingston and went 6 points clear at the top of the table as Rangers drop even more points, and they haven't won their first 3 league games for the first time since 1989. So yeah, I think it's been a pretty good weekend to be a Celtic fan, watching the meltdowns and etc. But Phil, with all the negativity now surrounding the club in terms of transfers and the previous European performance against Kairat at Celtic Park, is it refreshing or is it frustrating to you for the fact that the bread and butter of the league is still going pretty well so far?
I mean, well, I usually say it is a bread and butter, so it's always a positive there with that one. But I don't think any of us could have foreseen just how it would have started this season, for all the hype and the brouhaha during the summer there about takeovers and whatnot, and all the money that was going to get invested. I don't think any of us saw this coming, even though we're kind of used to it now, where there is a lot of hype around them and it usually ends. But this one felt a bit like, okay, we need to be wary here. You could look at it from the point of view that our board keep getting away with it here because this is playing right into their hands. But again, we can't just, they're going to mess up. We still have to be at our best. We're only a couple of years ago. At one point, I think we were 8 points ahead of Rangers and only took a couple of losses to Killie and Hearts. And then I think we drew with Aberdeen just after the turn of the year and they'd caught up to us. So it's like, even if we do come the end of this week, stick another nail in the coffin and go 9 points clear. Again, we still need to be our absolute best. It's still no excuse really for the way the club has handled the summer transfer window. It should be a lot stronger at this point. Of course, we're going to go on to talking about the big game tomorrow, and again, we're in the position that we're in going into this game tomorrow because of the strategy that we've, if you even want to call it a strategy, I don't even know what to say it is anymore, how we've handled the summer transfer window. But yeah, in terms of what's going on with them over the city, it's obviously, it's a wee bit of a bonus. But yeah, it doesn't mean that we can just sit back and go, they're messing up again, we can take it easy. Now, we all want Celtic to be the best version of Celtic that they can be. And right now, we're still not at that right now. It's very, very obvious. There's some glaring holes, and hopefully this week we can amend that, Conor.
Well, that actually brings me on to my next point. Pam, do you feel that obviously the potential is that, we're going to progress in the league and we're probably more than likely, calling it a bit early, I know, but more than likely probably going to win the league. Like, let's just call it plainly as it is. We're seeing what we're up against this season across the city, and it doesn't look like much. So do you feel that the better we do in the league this year, will the eyes from certain people, maybe certain groups, be taken away from the board shenanigans and the pressure that's being mounted on them? Or do you think that as a collective Celtic have had enough and the pressure will continue to mount despite potential success domestically? Or do you feel that like a lot of people, may just go back to saying, aye, but look, we're better than Rangers and we're going to win the league, so that's good enough?
I don't think so. Personally, I think winning the league is the expectation. So, if we win the league, that's perfect, and we are favourites to do so. But I don't think it should detract any attention from the board shortcomings. If anything, we should be even more intense because we want to keep progressing. I would love to get to a 10 in a row scenario, and what stopped us last time, a big part of that was the board's complacency and just this happiness with staying stagnant. So I think regardless of whether we win the league or not, we still have to keep the pressure on, and we still have to keep saying, like, we have to keep growing. This is how we keep breaking records, is how, because you keep growing. It's not because you stay stagnant. So I think we should keep applying the pressure.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, Phil, that does appear to be, the mantra that Celtic fans would like, us to be going down. It is kind of now looking like this kind of fairy tale fantasy land, kind of territory, because as I've seen, the board just don't do that. Like, it seems to be that, like the Celtic fans will say jump, the Celtic board will sit in their fucking arse. You know what I mean? Like, it's it's just doing the complete exact opposite of what we as a club would expect. And obviously we're getting detractors now from like fans of other teams in the league saying, "Oh, it must be so hard supporting Celtic," being winning the league and that all the time, and bringing raking in millions and that, and beating rivals all the time. But like, it's not just about that, is it, Phil? Because as a club, you want to constantly progress, constantly evolve. I mean, look at like Man City. Fair enough, they've been pumped full of dirty oil money for some Arab sheikh. But I mean, you look at really where they came from. They were a bloody championship team. 20, 30 years ago. They were a nothing club. They were a Diddy club. They were an Espanyol, to Manchester United, Barcelona. As and we I don't think I'll ever get to the point where we're ever gonna like revert like back to being just like doing nothing. I don't think that'll happen in a million Sundays. But I'm saying, Phil, like it's dangerous territory to be complacent, and the complacency hasn't just been this season. It's been season after season after season. You even look at a 10 in a row season. You look at not necessarily last season because we did spend a bit of money, but the season before that, Rodgers' first season, the transfers weren't good. But we're at the point now where Brendan Rodgers overwhelmingly is still relying on a manager who was here a couple of years ago. A manager who's had 2 years at Spurs and won them the Europa League. He's still massively relying on players brought in by that guy, because the players who either the board are identifying or are being offered to him, and he has to go with it because he's getting offered nothing else. There's no other choice. They're not good enough. So, what is it that needs to happen? Because there is not going to be just instant click. Like, it's never going to happen. We've seen banners getting put up at the weekend. We've seen every single post that Celtic put out, giving sack the board. It's been rung around the stadium, in unison by the fans and song. So do we need to keep mounting the pressure on them, or what do you think we need to do?
I think fair point of view from the fans' point of view. All we're asking really every season is just again to just be the best that we can be. Now we win the league, right? Because what do you get as your prize for winning the league? It's not necessarily the trophy, the physical trophy. It's to go into the Champions League. We don't want to go in and just get embarrassed every season. The last season we had in the new format, a pretty decent showing. Okay, we still haven't got over that hurdle of winning a knockout game after Christmas, which is still hanging over us, 20-something year it is now. But that is the next step. And if we are back in the Champions League again, if we do qualify for this, then, we don't want to go in and then we're out, in the bottom 12, and because there's no drop-downs anymore, remember. And the thing is, from the domestic stuff is our bread and butter, but I say when winning the league, the prize is to go into the Champions League. If you're not going to try to at least be competitive and at least give us some memorable European nights, try and take a few scalps, then what is the point? What is the point in winning the league? Because that is literally why we're doing it. That is the whole point of winning, to get into that European competition. So for me, it's like, that's what we're just asking for to do. Now, last February, when we lost to Bayern Munich, again, going into the Bayern Munich game, I don't think any Celtic fan in their right mind was saying we're the favourites, because Bayern are one of the best teams in the world, but we gave them a scare. And I just find it mad that back then, when the full-time whistle went in the Allianz Arena and we'd just had a heartbreaking equaliser scored against us, it stopped us going to extra time. And who knows what would have happened in extra time? Bayern might have found another level and maybe would have done us like another 3 goals. Maybe we went all the way to penalties. Who knows? Maybe we would have snuck through there. It's all hypothetical at this stage. But surely that those in charge of the club must have looked at that and been like, we're not too far away here. So I say it just baffles me that, we haven't pushed on there, letting like Nicholas Kuhn go before even having a replacement in the door for all the contributions that he gave us last season. Yes, there can be an argument about second half of last season. Maybe his head wasn't in it as much. He pretty much, after the Bayern Munich performance, that was probably the last great game that we had from Nicholas Kuhn. So it's like, but just things like that. But you just wonder what was going through their head at the full-time whistle there. Did they not think, okay, well, maybe 4 or 5 decent investments in the summer, like spending decent money on these players rather than lots of little £2 and £1 million players. Try and get some big investments, and we can beat a Bayern Munich, we can beat a Barcelona, we can take a scalp here and there. But yeah, see, now we're in a position where it's all on the line tomorrow night against a team from Kazakhstan to even get into the competition. So as I say, it just baffles me that they can't have seen that. And they say from our point of view, we're not expecting Celtic to go and win the Champions League, right? We know that we're not going to do that. No chance at all. It just never was going to happen in this day and age. But again, we just want to see that wee bit of progress. It's very telling that a team of our size and our caliber hasn't won a knockout game for as long as it has, and that would be a start. That would be a start. But first of all, say we need to actually get there, and yeah, say with him back in March to look at that performance and not think, do the business early, get the team ready, and we can probably cause a few shocks here. So so that's where I'm at just now with that one.
Yeah, Pam, it's a good point. Obviously, we're not asking for any unrealistic expectations here, are we? We're not asking to go and win the Champions League. We're not even asking necessarily to go and win the Europa League, which I think, even with the way we are ran, and with, the potential, lackluster transfers we do, we're getting potentially, it's possible, it's a possibility, we've seen it, and like, I'm curious to you, is like, what is like the vision that you would want Celtic to have, but like, and I'm not talking in terms of like your like golden goose, as in like what would be like the A game, like they would spend all this money, shell it out, it'll never happen. So like, what would, like, in a realistic sense, what would you want the Celtic to do? Like obviously I'm not saying we need to go out and spend £15 million on a player. Like we don't need to. But what I'm just asking you, Pam, what is something that you think, if the nut is screwed, potentially, the path that you can see Celtic going down to just massively improve as as a competitive force in Europe?
Yeah, so I'm just going back to like what I want from the squad. Ultimately, my bottom line is I'd like the board to actually replace the outgoing players. We don't have a replacement for Kuhn that I can see so far. We don't for Kyogo. And I would argue we actually never found one for Matt O'Reilly either. That's where I would start. And it doesn't mean they have to be the exact same players. They can have different styles, different techniques, but they have to bring a similar value asset to the team and to the performance. That'd be my first thing I'd like. And where can we go from there? You know, I'm not going to be excessively idealistic and say, oh, wow, let's beat Real Madrid. No. What I would love to see is maybe like 1 or 2 absolutely magical nights in Europe where, you know, you would remember that for pretty much the rest of your life. Like, you know, the 2-1 against Barcelona, or like, you know, Nakamura's like free kick goal against Man United, something like that. I don't expect us to go and win, you know, the Champions League. You know, I think we could give the Europa a good bash, to be honest, and maybe get like a really good run to the final, almost like Seville style. But I'm not asking for European trophies, but I'm asking for memorable European nights with a team that has strong assets in all areas of the pitch, that work together and that play good football to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're really asking for much here. I mean, I think as a club the size of our stature and, you know, the history that we do have, and the fact that I think even on our best night, you know, we can give, you know, big European teams a scare. We've seen it last season. We beat, you know, RB Leipzig very comfortably. Do you know what I mean? We got a draw away at Atalanta, who I think at that point were top half of the Serie A.
Europa League champions as well.
You know, ex-Europa League champions. And we also, you know, got a draw with Club Bruges, which is more than some teams can say. You know, they're no mugs either. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I just, as a frustrating, you know, thing where you see like there's this like glass ceiling on Celtic that the fans and supporters are trying to, you know, break through, but the board are, you know, sticking duct tape and blue tack and all anything they can fucking find to just try and keep the glass ceiling shut, which is, you know, something that I think, you know, we all want to burst through and, you know, eventually just have some memorable European nights. You know, obviously, but no one's really going to talk in the next 20 years about RB Leipzig. What was it, 3-1? But we're still going to talk about the night we beat Barcelona. We're still going to talk about the night we beat Man United. We're still going to talk about when we beat Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? You know, like, and it's an important thing, and it adds to the history, it adds to the mythos, it adds to the fear factor as well for a team like Celtic, because we are like, despite the fact that we are one of the biggest clubs in the world, right? And we are like anybody that says we're not knows nothing about football. But majority of people European football, right, have a massive snobbery in terms of like, teams from Scotland, or especially Celtic as well. They do look at us like minnows. Like a lot of teams, Premier League teams, Spanish teams, German teams, probably look at us as on the same level as Kairat Almaty. I don't know, we got a draw with them, so, you know, we can't exactly say that we're, you know, massively better than them. But like they probably look at us as on the same level as that. Like they look at us like we're like an easy one. And that's just all I want. All I want is us to play teams who are of a much higher standard than us, big names, you know, big teams, big clubs, and for them to come here and not think that we're going to just roll over and show our bellies and, you know, just be there for the taking. It'd be nice, you know, it'd be really nice. But obviously we're talking about squads there, so I think it's now time to move on to some immediate transfer news. All this is kind of broke.
Immediate as well. I love it.
Yeah, you
this
know,
is exciting.
You know, I should have brought my yellow tie. But you know, it's kind of all broken within the last few hours. Obviously that this is one that's obviously been fucking done to death over the last year, but it looks like Celtic are finally going to get their man, Michel-Ange Balaka. Obviously a deal has been agreed to for around €5 million, with a medical expected in the coming days, as well as Marcelo Saracchi being a target for Celtic. The left back currently plays for Boca Juniors, with a deal expected to likely be a loan with an option to buy. And we are also being looked at with a loan for a right back from Galatasaray. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but it looks like that is also going to potential loan with an option or even an obligation to buy. So, Phil, you know, obviously I think with the Michel-Ange Balaka thing, we're just like, thank fuck it's over. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, oh, like, and do you know what? I actually feel kind of sorry for the guy because he's going to come in and there's going to be like zero fanfare over him. He's going to be like, oh, I thought like he'd be maybe excited that was coming to join, but like, we've been waiting for you for a year. A year we've been waiting for you, and you're just coming in the new at the absolute, arse end of the window. But Phil, what's like your take on these? Obviously, the Michel-Ange Balaka thing, the Marcelo from Boca Juniors, and also there's right back from Galatasaray.
The first thing regarding Balaka that I'm really, really intrigued to, I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm actually going to watch the Jerry McCulloch interview when he's unveiled, because the first question that Jerry McCulloch always asks you signing is, when did you become aware of Celtic's interest? I'm intrigued to hear what his answer is to that, because see if he says it was only recently, he's talking pish. He's talking absolute pish, because apparently Celtic were in for him, a year ago? Like the 3 windows back or something we first heard about this. But yeah, it will be interesting. It's always the same 5 or 6 questions you ask, and that's always the first one. Oh, when did you become aware of Celtic's interest? And yeah, so yeah, I wonder what he'll come out with for that one. But yeah, here we are going into the last week of the transfer window, and yeah, I hate the fact that I've called this one, but I just saw it coming because of Adamida last year, Bernardo last year, just the way it dragged on. Balaka, it looks like it is actually going to happen now. 4.5 million, 5 million, around about there, does kind of beg the question: is that what we're haggling over? We're unwilling to pay about that, and it's like, well, the money that we've got, but end of the day, we do need to get winger options in. As soon as I heard the green light that Tilio was finally getting to go, which is just insane that was even a position we were in. We had to hold Marco Tilio hostage before we could, before we could sanction a move, because we had to get wingers coming in. So
integral part of the squad, Marco Tilio.
Unbelievable. And the thing is, well, today they put out a tweet, obviously announcing it, and they put at the end of it, "Thank you, Marco, and good luck." Thank you for what? For that fleeting sub appearance where he got thrown on against Motherwell and we drew 1 each for that. Oh, fantastic, Marco. Cheers, mate. But yeah, he's off ski now, so Balaka's coming in. I still think we probably need another winger as well, because he's a left-sided winger, I do believe. So you've also got Maeda that is comfortable there, and Jota is obviously going to be back at some point this season. Hopefully, it's not the whole season he's out. But on the right side, you've still basically got James Forrest, and that's Yang's more. Well, Yang can probably play on both, but Yang was still too erratic with Yang. James Forrest is 34. He can't be asked to play as many games as we're expecting him to right now. He's more an impact sub at this stage of his career. So I do still think we need a right-sided one. But yeah, I'll just be happy to just see something coming in the door, and also the story of Saraki, the left back, coming in as well, because that's something that we definitely need, because Tierney right now is at a stage where he still can't play a full 90 minutes. That's to be expected. He has been starved of first-team football for a while now. So it is a better option, I feel, than Liam Scales going in there at left back at the moment. So yeah, I just hope he doesn't turn out to be anything like the last Uruguayan left back that we signed. Let's not talk about that one. But yeah, it's good to just see some progress anyway, and hopefully it all works out in the end.
I mean, the Marcel Serachi could come in and be, the reincarnation of the next version of Alexander Bernabe. But as long as I don't need to see Liam Scales for left back anymore, I'll be a very happy man. To have to not watch Liam Scales maraud up to the centre of the pitch, have miles of open space in front of him, as much open grass as they could, dash through, and just turn back and pass it to the fucking defender or the keeper. It's something that, that's the thing with South Americans, and that is they like to get forward, they like a bit of flair. They do like they are very I don't want to say narcissistic, but they are very, they do want to big themselves up. They do want to get assists and goals and big up, their own profile and get their numbers up, because as we've seen, a lot of guys in South America coming from poverty, stuff like that, it's a way to get them out of that. Obviously, playing at Boca Juniors, stuff like that, it'll be on okay money. But, it is a way out for these guys. And, the more you impress, especially if you impress at a big club like Celtic, it opens doors for you. Do you know what I mean? Especially, as I've seen now, you can maybe only get 1 season, 2 seasons, season and a half. If you play well, you could have people chaperone your door, with bags of cash. So, I mean, hopefully he comes in and does well. Obviously, I think the rumour is it's a loan with an option to buy. So, I like the fact that obviously people are going to be frustrated with the fact that we're not just shelling out the money right away. But I do think the try before you buy has worked for us very well. And the recent past, look at guys like Jota, Carter Vickers, guys like that. Up until recently, Adam Ida, because when he did come in, I think all of us were kind of banging the drum for him to come in because he did play well. But obviously that's now crumbled into oblivion. But so Pam, with these deals moving rapidly and gaining momentum, does this not just prove to you the incompetence of the board and that these potential deals could have been done weeks ago? Because these have only just started to rumble on as soon as the sack the board chance have came out, as soon as we've drawn with Kairat Almaty, a game that we should have been winning it at Celtic Park. Does this not just go to show you that the board is still massive and confident? This shit could have been done weeks ago. Michel-Ange Balaka could have been the door months ago. Paul could have been the door a year ago. Do you know what I mean? So,
I don't think you can make the excuse for the board that they were really scouting out these players for a long time, doing more of a long-term analysis. I don't think you can say that about them. Excuse my language, I think they're caught with their trousers around their ankles and they're doing some crisis management work to try and save the show or something like that. I don't trust them to do really any proactive work. I think it's just let's see, what's the minimum we can do to just keep things going. And my concern is that when you get comfortable doing that, your standards do tend to drop lower and lower because the later you get on in the transfer window, the less players are available. So I don't think it's really any I don't think it's any well thought out strategy. I think it's almost like a panic response in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much this to me, Phil, looks like the Celtic board are on the Titanic and it's rapidly sinking for them, or maybe their own personal fucking yacht. If we're talking about Dermot Desmond, Peter Lawwell, and the widening hole is the widening holes in the hull are the chance from the Celtic support and the pressure mounting on them, and these players are just the buckets that they're just trying to scoop the water out rapidly as as it looks like it's sinking, because I think. It's it's no secret now. It never has been a secret, but I think now more than ever, especially recently, the overall opinion, even people, other Celtic YouTubers, other Celtic podcasts and that, who don't negatively who don't overwhelmingly take a negative, spin on things, are now just calling it out for what it is and plain black and white, saying it's not good enough, calling it a sheer incompetence. I think the fans, they now are kind of in unison with their the headspace and where they are in terms of the board. And this to me does just look like they're a bunch of panic merchants, and they're, I mean, I'm not saying they're chucking shit at the ball to see what sticks, but I mean, if within the space of a week or less than a week, we've been linked with 3 or 4 players, which is more than we have been for the past few weeks, after a negative result, after chances and stuff like that, is that not all the evidence that we need?
I think coming back from the game last week, I said that to my dad. Obviously, we were a bit down in the dumps, to say the least, after the 0-0 draw with Kairat. And I did say to him in the morning, I said, don't be surprised if over the next week, because tonight the fans made it quite vocal how they feel. Suddenly, if a team's wanting, say, 5.5 million for a player and we've been haggling, suddenly we're going to find that 5.5 million. Or you want 6 million for this player? No problem. Here's your 6 million. So, that's going to happen now. And it's no coincidence that following that and chants getting louder and louder. Even the manager has had to address it in press conferences because he's the only one that's been made to front up right now. So he's going to get asked about it. There's nobody from the board fronting up and and talking about it. So he's also been asked. So yeah, it's a bit of an egg on their face. And yet conveniently, now we're going to pay the 5 million or so that they wanted for Balaka and so on. So it doesn't surprise me at all. But again, it could have been done so much quicker and we wouldn't be in this position tomorrow night where it's on a knife edge. It really is right now, and so I'm not surprised at all that they've suddenly reached down the back of the couch and found all that spare change that they needed to pay these transfer fees or to get things moving now. And it does again beg the question: how exactly does it all work behind the scenes? Really, about players getting recommended to Brendan. The scouts, what are they coming forward with? Brendan's been harping on about, we need quality. So you think, well, what are they recommending to you? Is it just not good enough? What's the deal here? So it is interesting to see it all suddenly ramp up. But again, it could have been done, I feel, so much quicker than this. But this is where we find ourselves, and this isn't our first rodeo. We've been down this road before with Celtic, so it's how we do it. It seems we always do it the hard way. We always like to make it difficult for ourselves, and that's where we find ourselves. But yeah, I'm not surprised, Conor, that suddenly they've found all that money to spend all of a sudden.
Right, I'm going to kibosh the board chat now, but I'm going to finish it on 3 words: reactive, not proactive. And I think that perfectly sums up the attitude of the Celtic board, and it does generally just think the place out, and it is something that we're just absolutely sick of seeing. Like there was a man in situ a few years ago who I reckon had the board by the absolute balls, and it was Ange. He got in who he wanted, when he wanted, no matter the fucking price that they had to pay for them. And I think with obviously the tetchy relationship that Brendan Rodgers had with him, I think that Rodgers doesn't necessarily have as much room to swing his dick in the boardroom, to put it in a quite an appropriate way. Apologies, Pam, but that's just kind of the way that I talk. You know what I'm like. But it's just I think that's kind of like the optics of it. Optics of it. We can kind of judge that from what we're seeing. But enough about the board chat. Enough about all that, because Celtic have a game tomorrow. We venture over to Kazakhstan to play a team full of Borat's cousins in Kairat, Almaty. So, Pam, obviously, with this being a must-win game, and for me, over the last few seasons, this is the must-win game of must-win games. If I'm being totally frank, it's the fact that we're in this position in the first place, the fact that we're going to have to travel over to a country that basically bloody borders China, playing in 36-degree heat against a team who have not conceded a single goal at home, and in their European journey towards the Champions League so far, does not paint a pretty picture. And it does show that we are, despite the fact that a lot of people are confident, a lot of people think we will go over there and do them, it does kind of give the backdrop of the game like a hell of a lot more nervy than it should be.
Definitely. I can't say I'm 100% surprised we're in this situation, but I'm definitely incredibly frustrated. This was, in my opinion, 100% preventable. But with how the board have handled things, and I'll be honest, in my opinion, it was also the players' lack of motivation on Wednesday night. Whether that comes from, still getting used to the season, or whether they underestimated the opposition, that was also a part of the problem. I wish our European future this season did not rely on tomorrow's game, but it most certainly does. And I think if they don't get a good result tomorrow night, there will be a lot to answer for, from me anyway.
Yeah, that'll definitely scare them. No doubt about
it. They're like, Peter, Pam's on the phone and he's sitting hiding
behind his table,
hide behind his whiskey cabinet up in the office in Celtic Park. Do you know what I mean? Shaking. But Phil. Obviously, I think me personally as well, I did also massively underestimate the ability of this team. Obviously, I was at the game last Wednesday, and I was speaking to a boy in a pub before I went in, and he goes, "What's your prediction for the night?" And I'll be totally honest, I came out and I said 7-1 Celtic. you know, and we were a bloody far cry from that. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Obviously, and you know, it's it's really interesting to me because obviously this team haven't conceded a goal at home, but with the tie, you know, and you know the pendulum the way it is, they are going to need to come out. I think last week, from what I seen in the game anyway, when I was there, they're a team who aren't afraid to sit and soak up the pressure.
Yeah,
they're very, very streetwise. They're very streetwise. I mean, I could basically just call it, you know, like time wasting because they were time wasting.
Yeah.
You know, that was the first whistle. The stretcher got brought out about 3 times. You know, last Wednesday, and one of it was only for our player. So it's you know it's something now that we need our players to perform. We need our big players to perform. We need guys like Callum McGregor, Brio Hattati, Dyson Maida, Carter Vickers, Casper Schmeichel. We need all these guys, our big game players, to come in and, you know, absolutely grab this game by the scruff of the neck. We need to score within the first 20 minutes tomorrow night. I think if this is going to be, you know, a relatively, you know, decent performance, if we don't score within the first 20, 30 minutes, that team can just soak up the pressure. And they showed last week that they're capable on the counter-attack. They're players who are very capable of countering, you know, when our players are up the pitch. And the way we like to play, we like to get a lot of our players, you know, up the pitch. And we leave, you know, a lot of room at the back, which I think Kairat, you know, can you know, take advantage of. So, Phil, to me, what's like your kind of like thoughts, analysis, you know, going forward? Like, do you agree with me? Do you think we should take a different approach? Do you think we should change the formation, drop players, start players? Like, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, we need to be on the offensive from the get-go. We are the favourites still to go through for a reason, because regardless of how the summer's been handled, we still should have had enough last week to put them to the sword. And sadly, I saw a lot of tropes that I've seen happen at Celtic Park for God knows how many years now, in some domestic games and more so in European games. These teams that come and they're very streetwise and they know how to waste time. And basically, every single free kick, you know, they go down and the referee just buys everything that they're selling. And it was one of those last week. And Celtic were just playing right into it. You know, you get too touch tight to them and they'll just throw themselves to the ground. You know, you're giving them the chance to do that, and then they'll stay down for ages and waste time. And I say I've seen it all before, and I think even on their own park tomorrow, I think they will do that. I still think they'll try and frustrate us, because it wouldn't surprise me if they try to take it the whole distance to try and play. I know they beat Bratislava on penalties. You know, they held them to a draw over the 2 legs and took it all the way, put it in the hands of the gods. But it wouldn't shock me. But obviously the conditions are going to be difficult. I think it's to be 20-something degrees tomorrow, but it's a bumpy pitch. It's obviously, I think it's at a high altitude as well. So there's all these things that are, you know, all these red flags, all these things that could be very dangerous for us. But if we can just get off to a fast start and do not let the game just disintegrate into passing it sideways. Look at the weekend there. Something that we're all calling out for: when it opens up for you to have a shot at goal, have a shot. Look what Yang did in the first minute of the second half, where he opened up and he had a shot and the ball deflected right back to Nygren for a tap. And I always say that about these things. Said always just pass and try to keep the ball and walk into the net. You have a shot. Look in the first day of the season, Luke McCown took a chance on the outside of the box. It hit off a defender, deflected into the net, goal. Say at the weekend there, Yang shot from outside the area, keeper going on there, hold on, and Nygren was there for the tap in. Hattati up at Pataudry, on the edge of the area, just picks his spot outside the area, puts it in the top corner. You know, you've got to take these chances instead of just keep on holding on to the ball and try to walk into the net, score the perfect goal. We're going to have to just, you know, not allow us to just. This team will sit with 10 men behind the ball, so we don't want to just be turning into pass sideways. And yeah, they will just soak up the pressure. That will be their game plan. For people who did watch the game against Bratislava, they said that team, that's all they did over the 2 legs, was they just sat back and just soaked it up. And yeah, I can expect similar tomorrow. So yeah, if we can just get off to a flying start, and yeah, hopefully do guys like Maeda with the pace that they've got in behind, we can exploit that, then yeah, if we can get a couple in the first half, then I'll feel a lot better. But right now, yeah, see, it's in the balance, and I've seen it before. You just worry that the game will, turn into that horseshoe, as Liam, likes to say. The horseshoe passing. Hopefully, it doesn't turn into that, and we can just get off to a flyer, because we have got a better team. I say, regardless of the current state the squad is in, it's still better than Kairat. I mean, I looked at the rankings for the coefficient rankings, and if they were a Conference League team, they would be 36 out of 36. That's how bad Kairat are, and we can break them down last week. So it's just a case of we have to just go right at them from the start, because if we can get ahead by a comfortable margin, then with the heat and all that won't come into play. If we can get a nice comfortable lead on the night, then we can just contain. But we don't want to start off containing the game and then going for it later. We need to try and kill this tie quickly, because if it goes all the way through extra time and penalties, then no, don't even want to contemplate it. No, hopefully we don't find ourselves in that position. So it's got to be a fast start tomorrow, Conor. Has to.
It needs to be rapid, absolutely blistering. Before I move on to, asking Pam, just be shout out to Dan, who's became a new member on the Boys in the Bus podcast. Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you for the support. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. But Pam, the thing that I think because we've not even just seen it against Kairat this season, we've seen it against Livingston in the first half the other day. We've seen it against St Mirren in the first league game of the season, as we've seen very recently. St Mirren are a really hard-working team to break down, and they don't give a lot away. And I think the main thing that, obviously having a prolific striker in the middle, being there to pick up, and things would obviously help in abundance. But I think the thing that we are lacking, especially now with like guys like Jota and that being out, is players who can create something almost from nothing. We really lack any flair players, in the squad. They are all kind of like consummate in their role. They don't really stray too far from the role that Brendan Rodgers is in. Now, I don't know whether that is simply down to the manager or whether it's simply the players don't have the confidence or the ability to do that. I think the only one we have that is maybe even you could slightly see is Yang. And as we've also seen recently, he's like yin and yang. 1 week he looks all right, next week he looks absolutely like next week he looks Humpty. You know what I mean? So, and I think, I think we can all kind of sit here hand on heart and say, realistically, he's not good enough. We can't be relying on a guy like Yang to be pulling us out of these, sticky situations. In the league, domestically, maybe, yeah. But in big games like this, key games like this, crucial must-win games like this, we can't be relying on a guy who is hot and cold every other week to, be digging us at this ditch. And that's something where if we did bring in wingers before now, we might not be in this situation. If we did bring in a striker to replace Kyogo before now, to pick up on loose balls, to bully the defenders, to take shots from outside the box, we might not be in this situation. And obviously it goes back to the whole thing about the board and the transfers, and we've already covered that, to the nth degree tonight. But there is, I think, with our play, and like I'll be totally upfront and honest. I'm happy we won the weekend. I'm happy the Rangers dropped points. That we're cruising in the league technically. I did put in a message at halftime saying that I am absolutely sick to the back teeth the way that Brendan Rodgers plays, and that I am really frustrated. And I did say I can't wait till he leaves. And I'll be honest, I said that. I said I can't wait till he leaves because the football is incredibly boring. We've only seen a bit of that come out in the second half when the frustrations were mounting and support in the stands when it looked like we might go another game without being able to break someone down. Only then did it spark into play. Why isn't there that for the get-go? Because of the style that Rodgers implements. It's going mad in the chat now. People using the magnet emoji. Like, that's kind of the way we play. It's just like in the shape of a magnet. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a horseshoe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's and to me, Pam, if we had better players, if Rodgers implemented different tactics, to me, I don't think we would even be in this precarious position, because, like, I know this team we're playing tomorrow night aren't like amazing by any stretch, and we shouldn't really look down on them. As a team we should be beating, but our Champions League, hopes are hanging on by a thread. And if we had better players in, a better style of football, maybe even a better manager, we wouldn't be in this position.
Yes. I think because of the fact that the football we're seeing with Celtic is quite unanimously in this more stagnant, slow build-up style. It makes me think that it's not necessarily the player's ability, but it's the manager going after a certain style of player that fits into the style of play he wants to play. For me, I really don't like it. The thing that really annoys me the most is just trying to walk the ball into the net. For me, that's one of the reasons why actually I like Nygren so far. I really like him because he seems like somebody that just takes the shot. And if I'm thinking, oh my God, it's so refreshing to just see a player who just takes the shot instead of, taps it around for 5 bloody minutes. That's really saying something about the overall style. For me, it's just way too stagnant. And I think in tomorrow's game against Kairat, we really need to just flip the style. We need to go out full pelt and just go for it. If anything, overwhelm them. Just keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. And none of this 2 minutes just to maybe get across and that somebody might, get at or somebody mightn't. It has to be more intense. It has to be more go, go, go.
Yeah, it's Phil. It's a very predictable style of play as well. Most teams could watch us for a game or 2 games and study us preparing for a match against us, whether it's domestically or whether it's in Europe. You know exactly what's going to happen. The ball's going to go for the goalie, to the fullback, back to the goalie, back to the defender. Might go up to the winger. The winger might cut in, pass it back to the midfield. The midfield will pass it back to the defender. The defender will pass it back to the goalie. It'll go back up to the middle of the park, go out to the winger. The winger might try and take a run, do something like that, and it'll more than likely get cut out. Yep. It's a very boring, predictable style of play. And I don't, you can correct me from, but I don't remember playing this way under Brendan Rodgers when he first came here. The football was absolutely electric, Yep. And
the original treble season was amazing.
We had, and I'm not gonna lie, some of the players, that we had then were absolutely fantastic. Obviously, some of the players have now can't hold a candle to the players we had then. But we've got Kieran Tierney there, who was there during that period of time. He's arguably a better player now because of the experience he's got. Callum McGregor's fitted into the captain role very, very well. He was a very good player during that season. James Forrest, enough said about him the better, but still there, And some of the players that we had, Carter Vickers is the best defender that we've had since Virgil van Dijk.
Aye.
He's better than Dedra Bayat and Christopher Ayer. Do you know what I mean? He's well better than them. Alistair Johnson's probably better than Mikael Lustig as a fullback. You know what I mean? So, to me, I don't get it. I don't know if this is after the whole Pep Guardiola Premier League thing has seeped into Rodgers' tactics. And this
seeped into everybody's tactics going on. Everybody wants to play that.
It's seeped into Sunday League fucking football tactics. If you ever see any clips online, it's absolutely farcical now. I mean, I think, to be honest, it's totally around football.
Yep.
And to go from a style of play under a previous manager where we put the absolute fear of God into every team that played us, domestically at least,
Yep.
Maybe not in terms of Europe because we didn't get a lot of good European results, fair dues. That was early days, let's be honest. To go from that, where we would score 3, 4, 5 goals, a game almost every week. Our players were absolutely on fire, Everybody was shit fear playing us because of style play, because it was so aggressive and it was so Celtic. To go from that to playing such a pedestrian style of football, to me, I don't think that it's going to work. I think someone along the line is going to figure it out, more than they already have, and it's going to come back to bite us and bite Brendan Rodgers, harder as well. And it's going to come to a game where we, need to win. But say it's our last chance to win it, win a European knockout tie. Say we do get in the Champions League, and we've got, I don't know, a Juventus or something like that, in the latter stages of the Champions League. A team like that is going to figure it out, no problem.
Oh, aye.
And it's going to be no issue to them whatsoever to just suck up and deal with it.
Aye.
to me, I think, again, maybe not tomorrow night, but I think further down the line this season, I think there has to be some room for experimentation with Rodgers and his style.
For a shadow of doubt. I mean, right now with the injury problems that we've had, and with the squad depth not being what it is, I said it the other night on the Friday film talking to Johnny and Liam. I'm like, any manager worth their salt would, like, this is what I've got available. I can't exactly play the 4-3-3 that I like playing, but these are the players I've got available. So mix it up and change up the formation, fit it into something that you can play. But I think pre-season would have been the time for that, to experiment with new formation. We're too far on now, I guess, to change it, which is mental to say, because it's football. You'd like to think in this day and age that players can adapt to other formations and other tactics. And the thing is, you're talking about Brendan's first spell in charge. You don't even go that far back. Go back to just a year ago, Conor. The first half of last season, we were electric for 6 months. And it's probably just down to the fact that we still had Kyogo and Kuhn, and they were firing on all cylinders. And I know Matt Riley was only here for a short time last season, because obviously he left just before the end of just for the transfer window. But yeah, that first 6 months, we were fantastic. And it seemed to... I remember the game with Dynamo Zagreb. It was in December, that Champions League game, where we'd had the positive result with Leipzig. I think the draw with Bruges kind of caught us by surprise, but as you said earlier on, they're a much better team than I think many of us thought, and they've proved it. By the time, it did feel like a bit of flattened us a wee bit, but then that Zagreb game came along, and they were rank rotten. They were terrible. And we just did what we're doing now, a lot of this passing sideways and just holding on to the ball, when previously we'd just been going at teams like that Leipzig game again, just the way we just went at them. And it's like in some of the domestic games at the start of last season, I remember us going to Easter Road, which was a ground that Brendan Rodgers struggled at, second game of last season, blew Hibs away in the first 20 minutes. And one thing that was different as well this time last year, Callum McGregor, remember how many goals Callum McGregor scored for outside the area? Talking again about, instead of just, it's keep passing it sideways. When it opens up, it seemed like he was instructed last season, if it opens up for you, have a shot. He scored one against Rangers in the first Glasgow derby, a brilliant goal. One against St Mirren and Paisley. I remember one against Kilmarnock as well. And obviously against Hibs, he was just pinging them in. So there's just like wee things. And that was only just a year ago. And it's like, well, why is it changed now? Like, say some players are afraid to shoot from outside the area. And yeah, we just need to hope now with these players that seem to be coming in, looks like it's going to happen, that what we saw just this time last year, they can pick it up again, because we don't need to go that far back to look at, we're capable of it. Most of the players that were here this time last year are still here. So they've got it in them, but they need something to really, really spark them into life, because we've definitely got that in. So hopefully when these new signings get announced for the next week, that will be the catalyst to get us back to a more attractive brand of football. I know there's a whole adage as well for, it doesn't really matter how you win it as long as you win it. But, the fans do put a lot of time and a lot of money, a lot of, investment into the club. They want to see a good product on the park as well at the same time. And say just a year ago, we were churning out a good product. And then somewhere midway through last season, it just seemed to become very, very pedestrian. So it's there. Let's try and get back to that again.
Yeah. Obviously, going into tomorrow night, let's all just sit here, fingers crossed that it goes as well as it could possibly go. Let's hope we're 3-0 up after 20 minutes. But I think with obviously Celtic's recent history and must-win games in Europe, I think we can say the odds are not necessarily in our favour. But moving on to the last point of the show. This is just going to be just a wee tiny wee bit, because obviously the build-up to it will come later on in the week. Obviously, with guys like Phil and Liam and stuff like that on the bus later on during the week as well. But obviously, Pam's here, and Pam doesn't get as many opportunities to come on as she would like. And we very, very rarely actually get to ask her about, this fixture that's coming up on Sunday, and it is the first Glasgow derby of the season against Rangers at Ibrox. Obviously, we're going into this. Obviously, I'm taking the game tomorrow out of the equation, right? Let's just say, for instance, we win, right? But we're going into the game on a high. and they're more than likely going to lose on Wednesday night. Let's be totally frank, against Club Brugge. They're out of Champions League. Okay, let's be fucking honest. We're going in against a team whose confidence is absolute rock bottom. Their fans are in absolute uproar at the manager, at the tactics, at the lack of effort being displayed by the players. Their star player, their star striker, refused to come on against St Mirren yesterday and claimed that, he was injured although he trained fine, warmed up fine, was about to be stripped and come on to potentially win the game for them, and then turns around and tells the manager, "Nah, I'm injured." Their captain, who hardly gets a start anymore, a guy who we can say about him being a serious loser in that, James Tavernier has historically dragged Rangers out of the mud, like and like big games when they had to win, whether it was on the back of a dodgy penalty or a shot or whatever. He's still done it, or put in a good cross and they've won it with a header or something like that. Still done it. Was pictured getting a chippy last night after the game, and it's absolutely blown up. All over social media, their fans are absolutely foaming at the mouth. The vegan Buddhist who's meant to take Rangers into the next era. But Pam, what is your thoughts going into the game at the weekend? How confident are you feeling now in terms of what you're seeing that the other side of the city are showing and what Celtic domestically are showing?
I'll say with the derby games, I'm never 100% confident, to be honest, because these games are just so strange. They can be so intense. That really it can go either way. It's just a matter of what happens on the day. Even though on paper and on appearance, we do look stronger and we do look more put together in every way, shape, and form. Let's be real. But part of me is also thinking look, they don't look like they're in the best shape. But you also never know how much of that can be dramatized for views, for clicks, for engagement. So I'm not taking anything for granted. I still want us to show up. I still want us to show up there and do what we can do best. I do think we will win, but I don't think it's going to be this huge margin. I think. Oh, sorry. Do you want me to give you a score, by the way, before?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. I think it could be a 2-0 or 2-1. I'm thinking like that.
Yeah. Phil, obviously, as we've seen, I think Pam's being a little bit more, being more calm or being more laid back about, the potential, upcoming game against Rangers. Obviously not, putting all our cards on the table yet. I'm not going to do that.
Oh well,
I'm going to just come and say it as it is.
What a revelation this is! Really,
breaking news. You never would have thought that. I'm not going to lie. From what I've seen, and obviously one of my best mates is a Rangers fan, I think the rot is set in so deeply now that that it's there for the world to see. You're having every sports talk show discussing it. It's being discussed, in their forums on Twitter, all the rest of it. The manager, seems to pass the buck every other week to someone other than himself, other than his tactics. The togetherness does not seem to be there. And I'll be totally honest, they looked like a bigger threat under Barry Ferguson when he was there. Obviously, they got results against us because that is the one thing that I think Barry Ferguson did instill in Rangers for the short period he was there, was the traditional Rangers blood, thunder, guts, play for your, the Brown Brogues pride or whatever the fuck.
battle fever.
That's it, the battle fever.
Fever.
All those, old adages that are still the silly nonsense that, they come up with week on, week out, to try and big themselves up to try and maybe finally get a result against us. But, they're being ran by a guy who, all right, I can guarantee you this, right? This is exactly what Russell Martin said at half time, right? or what they said in some kind of post-match interview after they got that draw sitting there, where I'm like, yeah, sorry guys, I went in and it was a really tough game, 1-0 down. I had to try and rejig the boys, give them some extra motivational halftime tofu, at half time. We sat, we tried to realign our chi, bring some balance to it, and go out there and do what we can do as Rangers. And obviously it didn't fucking work, because at the end of the day, they couldn't win. They scored, luckily, and they couldn't get the win. Obviously it's 3 1-1 draws in a row. I think their goal difference is, what is it?
It's 0. So it's
Zero.
Zero.
There's literally 0, and I think what are we at now? +9.
We've won 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, so 6 plus 6, isn't it?
+6, sorry.
Aye.
My maths is terrible. But Phil, to me, I think obviously with all the optics going on, the pressure is seriously going to mount on them because of just how poor they've been. I think this is the worst start to one of their seasons, I think, ever, if you take into account the European results as well. I think he's won 3 out of his first 9 games or something like that. Obviously, they haven't won, any of the first 3 league games, first time since like 1989. But the thing is that the pressure, the eyes are going to be on them, I think, massively.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can discount the also added pressure that is going to add to Celtic.
Yeah.
Because the eyes are going to be on us. For everybody that's going to watch this game, millions of people all over the world, the media, our fans, other fans of teams in the league, Premier League fans, if they tune in to watch it.
Yep.
We are going to be almost expected to do a number on them. And as we've seen recently, when they haven't been doing well necessarily, even if it was under Barry Ferguson, he didn't have a necessarily a great start. When we were expected to go out and absolutely do them, we couldn't do it. We couldn't get that result. We couldn't, perform well enough. And obviously, I'm saying players aren't necessarily there now. Obviously, they could be in by that time, but whether they'll be good enough to play, in a matter of 6 days, remains to be seen. But the pressure on us, Phil, I think, is massively going to ramp up. It's only going to ramp up more as the week goes on, and as we see, obviously, the other results in terms of our European performances for us and for them as well do come in.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it relatively short, because I'm going to talk about my feelings about the game on Friday night. But as weird as I sound, I hate it when we're such overwhelming favourites. It just is, because I've got PTSD over it. We've had some shockers where we've just went in and just had an absolute stinker. I'm always a wee bit worried going to Ibrox. It's one of the grounds where, I don't know, it can just go so easily wrong. I mean, it's good that we've got an away contingent again. That seems to be now sorted. There's no more stumbling blocks there, no stories at the last minute about the away fans, things going to get cancelled. So I'm happy there's going to be a contingent of fans, because I do think the fixture needs it first and foremost. Yeah. And I think Celtic need it. I think every time Celtic will play a game, you always need a contingent of fans there. So that does make me feel a bit better. But yeah, I'd say I'll talk more about it on Friday. But I do hate when there is such an overwhelming, belief that we're just going to turn up and roll them over. It's we've seen too many examples in recent years where we've got a bit too cocky and it's backfired on us. So hopefully, come Sunday, I say we could get this done tomorrow. If they have another shocker on Wednesday night, and then we could go in on a massive high. So yeah, then we'll just need to wait and see. Well, I guess we'll know closer at the time. I think come Friday, Saturday, we'll have a better idea of where both teams are. If we get some more transfers, coming in, to boost the squad, and what a baptism of fire that could be if they have to play on Sunday. But it would be the first time. Alistair Johnson made his debut at Ibrox in a 2-2 draw a couple of years ago. So it's not, he played well that day. So it's not exactly a possibility that Balaka could be thrown straight in there. What a story that'd be if he turned up and scored right away. But yeah, I will talk more with Liam, and I think Johnny will be on again on Friday night. We'll discuss the game and whatever European draw Celtic have got, because if we're in the Champions League, it'll be Thursday, the draw, and if we're in the Europa League, it'll be Friday. But either way, we'll have a European draw to talk about as well on that show. But I guess we should do predictions then, I guess, for tomorrow and get that out of the way before we go.
Here we go. I'll come to you first, Phil, since you brought the subject up. So what's your prediction for tomorrow night, mate?
I hate to say this. I think we'll win, but I think it's going to go all the way to penalties. I don't want it to go all the way to penalties, but I've got a bad feeling it's going to be an awkward night. and we're going to be, because again, Celtics like to just do it the hard way.
I wouldn't trust us in penalties either, to be honest.
No, I wouldn't trust us either. I mean, we've always been quite bad at penalties in general. But yeah, obviously we lost the last penalty shootout we played. But yeah, I've got this feeling that it's going to go all the way, because it would just be typical. We fly all the way to Kazakhstan. It's getting played on the Tuesday, which a lot of fans were worried about first. But you go, okay, playing on Tuesday, come back in the Wednesday. The Rangers game is on Sunday. It's okay. There's plenty of time. It would just be typical of us to do the full 120 minutes and see it in heat and have a penalty shootout as well. It would just be something that we would do. But ultimately, I think we'll win it, but we're going to do it the hard way. Astana a few years ago, Beersheva, Shakhtar Karagandhi, where we just do it in a really dramatic way, and that's what I think we'll do. We'll find a way, but they'll go all the way. I don't want it to happen that way, but I've got a funny feeling it's going to go all the way. And hopefully I'm wrong and we just go and steamroller them. But yeah, I've got a bad feeling about that.
Okay, Pam. Hopefully your prediction can lighten the mood a wee bit on that one.
Well, my prediction. Well, first, I just want to say, if it goes to penalties,
Jesus.
honestly, I would want a cigarette, and I don't smoke because I don't think I could handle that. My prediction, it's still a wee bit nervy, but it's not as bad. I think it'll be 2-1 to us.
Right. Okay. I could accept that maybe. My prediction is slightly more positive, not massively more positive, but I think we'll potentially win 3-1 tomorrow night. I do think though we will get like a little bit of a scare. I think we could maybe score first. I think we could maybe pull one back. But then I do think, obviously, with the nature of the fixture and the players that we do have, I do think that, we could go on to get a relatively convincing win over there. I don't think it's to be as hot tomorrow night over in Kazakhstan either. I think the
20-something, I think it's
20-something degrees, which is, a far cry from it being about 36 degrees, which is what we all kind of imagined it would be. So, I do hope that is the case. And that our players don't come back. Absolutely. I would love nothing more than us to, put them to bed in the first half and then just bring on all the subs and just rest them until Sunday. But obviously, I think the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. But anyway, that's us wrapped up for tonight, folks. We do hope you've enjoyed. Thank you to my co-hosts, Phil and Pam. I do hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you to everybody in the live chat. Thank you to Dan, who became a new member tonight as well. Do appreciate it. Don't forget, guys, you can like down below. Hit the share button, subscribe as well. Anything you do massively helps. Become a member as well for I think $1.99 a month, and you obviously get a highlight comments, wee Celtic scarf, all the wee bits and bobs. And don't forget, there's also, if you think you're on a laptop or a browser, I think there is a little bell notification in the YouTube section where you can enable notifications, so you will be notified every time that we do go live. If you do want to catch us live and not have to catch us at a later date, so you can hit that button as well to be notified when they're on. But anyway, guys, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Pam. Thank you to the live viewers. Appreciate every single one of these. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope that my rambling has been somewhat bearable. But hopefully tonight we get the job done, and hopefully roll into Sunday feeling more confident. But see ya.
Right, see you guys. Cheers.